Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Strange Planet. Thanks, as always, for sticking me in your ear. And if you'd like to get deeper into Strange Planet, just click on the link in the episode notes, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. You gain access to commercial-free listening, bonus episodes, and a subscription to my monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum. So consider becoming a premium subscriber at strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. All right, on this episode, we're going to delve into some fan favorites, secret space programs, close encounters, crypto-terrestrials, breakaway civilizations, secret societies, and more. Beyond Top Secret Texan is a full-spectrum broadcaster of the truth, from the extraterrestrial to the occult, military conspiracies to true crimes. Tex produces both a podcast and uploads dark web videos, as well as daily news on his social media. Tex is a lifelong super experiencer and has unique independent perspectives offered uncensored on the Beyond Top Secret Texan podcast. Tex, welcome to Strange Planet. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited to be on, very sincerely. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So tell us more about Beyond Top Secret Texan. How do we listen? Where do we listen? And when is it on?
You can hear the Beyond Top Secret Texan broadcast from the third coast of the Gulf Coast of Texas, all over Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of the major podcast providers, Apple Podcasts, etc., and all the minor ones as well. I think it's over a dozen so far. We're broadcast internationally, and we're charted to prove it. And you can check out the social media currently over on Twitter, or X, formerly Twitter, because the content that I produce is, it's the truth, and it's the truth that's dangerous to the system. Evidence of UFOs, evidence of extraterrestrials, evidence of other supernatural phenomenon, everything from psychokinetic or ESP type activities, remote viewing, astral projection, spirit entities, demons, jinn, cryptids, military conspiracies or top secret evidence of top secret programs, or research that they're conducting that's classified. Everything from curating and archiving the controversial in the name of free speech to championing what is considered verboten and taboo in the current, semi or fascist and totally Orwellian world that we live in now. And that has gotten me kicked off of YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram once, and a number of others. And so you can catch me while you can currently on Twitter, but I don't guarantee that it will be very, on there for very long. But over 3 years of doing this full time, you can definitely find me in some strange places, reposted on blogs and on Rumble, etc. My videos I had over 600 videos on YouTube before it was deplatformed. Those are archived on Odyssey, ODYSEE.com. All of them are available for free to watch on Odyssey. But yeah, finding me on the mainstream, it'll be difficult because I'm shadow banned, and the algorithm is definitely hiding me a lot where I do still exist, like Instagram or Twitter. But definitely follow on linktr.ee/beyondtopsecrettexan. Follow the podcast, become a member, follow, review, share. Everything is grassroots. Definitely depend on every new listener we can get. Just to help spread the word, help get the impression rate up and everything. But so far, we're thriving. So far, the show is doing better than I've ever expected it to be. We're reaching more people than I ever expected. It is beyond my wildest dreams how quickly and how fast. I know this entire podcast and how well we're succeeding at it and everything.
Yeah.
So
it seems like we're in the midst of a great awakening. Who was Tex before you started podcasting, and what was the jumping off point for you when you decided I have to go public and start talking about all of these things?
I talk only about my life experiences, and I'm only inspired by my life experiences. It puts the relevant spin on all my research going forward into this. So I'm not just a researcher or someone who's intellectually curious about this, someone who's lived it and is trying to make sense of my experiences by adding that into what I see and seeing what from my own truth perspective, my point of view. But knowing these things are real, not being skeptical or believing or curious. It's not a matter of faith. It's a matter of knowing and trying to figure out where the pieces of the puzzle are hidden so that we can create the bigger picture, because it's not a matter of the evidence doesn't exist. The truth is out there. It is actively being covered up. It is actively being suppressed. Now, my life is adventurous, yes, but adventurous lives do exist. And in the modern world, that's more of a curse than it is a blessing, because it makes you more alienated and it makes you more self-conscious of your own difference and basically isolation in your own experience. But within my life, I've succeeded at going to college. I had full paid scholarships to go to Texas A&M University. Graduated with a bachelor's degree in 4 years. Joined the Navy right after that. In this real world, but my childhood experience, my abduction experiences, my close encounter experiences begin when I was a child. It begins at the age of 9, and it leads into my whole life of having this. This is when the age of 9 is when I have the experience as a MyLab. It's a MyLab that was curated by the United States Navy in this breakaway civilization program, secret space program called the Solar Warden. And this is where Gary McKinnon, the hacker, he discovered Navy proof of this and everything. So this is like a pretty good example of where my personal experiences intersect with the real world ufology, because I had these memories as a child and I thought these were just mine. And I thought I was the only person in the world to have these memories. And then I realized that I'm not. And then I realized there's actually evidence in this if I just pursue it further. And I have to see and review my own life almost as an outsider to make sense of it at this point. But that's why I'm doing the podcast. That's why I'm doing this research full time. And it's come at great sacrifice to who I was, because after the military, I also went back to college. I'm a very, successful person and a very, well motivated person. But to have my life become directed in this way, it's only through great interest and great earnest zeal in the subject. I very much consider myself a Fortean in the line of I'm a thinker. I see that there is huge anomalous amounts of activity in our world. It is all coming to fruition. Nothing is as it seems. But for the keen eye and for the observer, nothing is off limits and nothing is secret. Once you learn about things like the Akashic records, you learn about things that are not in your so much locality. You learn things about the international. You learn things about the world, the actual world and the populations therein. I attribute this to my education. I attribute this to my own travels. Yes, I'm Texan, but do not underestimate a Texan. Texans are first world peoples. Our economy is larger than Russia. We travel the world. We have connections to ancient European royalties. We have connections to the Mesoameric world, the Mesoameric world, Latin America world. We have connections to education and institutions from secret societies. Even this is Freemason capital of the world, basically, and there's 900 lodges in Texas and things like that. You'd be surprised who the small town people are. They're extremely educated individuals, and it's just like I am not a Freemason. I can say that. Nor do I accept their entire pledge of allegiance to them and their loyalties. But I'm saying that this is a platform for where I started getting curious. I know these things are not fantasies. I know they're not conspiracy theories. These are realities. Secret societies exist. Secret societies pull the strings in town. Secret societies control the world. And thus, you have this perspective of this occult knowledge, seeing things that are hidden and to the regular layman. And then realizing that once that domain is open to you, that that you have the potential to learn everything that there is to learn about extraterrestrials, alternative energies, alternative histories, what they would call the illumined subjects, the ancient mysteries. And like Bill Cooper presented the ancient mysteries, it's there for anyone who has the actual motivation to search. But that is where my motivation comes, is through my own experiences, abductions, contact with extraterrestrials, classic abduction experiences with the Greys. And this happened throughout my life, even during the Navy, even after the Navy and post-Navy. military experience, I was still being abducted and contacted by aliens and extraterrestrials. I still have super contact experience. I still see UFOs. And it is that common where it's almost a daily experience, where it's just, and I have witnesses. I have my family, I have my friends, I have my wife that I can easily just, we're going outside, we're looking at UFOs tonight, and they will be there. Unidentified flying objects in the sky. It's a gut feeling, it's an intuition, it's a vibe. And when you're in that frequency, when you're in that modality, when your eyes are open, when your mind is open, these things manifest themselves, not because you're Matt helping them, but it's because you're actually paying attention. And it's happening all around us all the time.
Oh,
It's the
let me just jump in here and ask you to explain what these My Labs are, because some of my listeners may not be familiar. And then we can get into Solar Warden and some of your abduction experiences. So let's start with My Labs.
My labs are military abductions. They are as in nature, in essence, like alien abductions, if people are completely unsure what they are. But with military personnel being witnessed by the abductee, typically in black uniforms, typically in taken to deep underground military bases or operating alongside grays or reptilians or other extraterrestrial beings that are seen for, like by the survivors, by the people who are describing them in great and vivid detail. Um, this is because the United States government works alongside extraterrestrial, crypto-terrestrial entities as well as ultra-terrestrial entities with different programs and different levels of, you know, uh, predatory intent, and it's absolutely because the society that we live in is basically controlled by these breakaway super militaries, these societies that are positioned on high technology, on these grandiose planetary systems of like understanding, like they understand that there's extraterrestrials, they understand they can make deals with them and get this technology. They understand they keep it secret by harvesting human beings, using technology that is that hidden from these populations, like say the Midwest. This is why a bunch of these abductions happen in the Midwest, for example. They happen next to military bases. They happen next to these programs, like in El Dulce, and it's like my labs were researched heavily by Dr. Carla Turner. So if you want a third party source, if you don't want to take just my words for it, and you want a really good established ufologist in history, Dr. Carla Turner, tons of great work with my labs. And in essence, they're just alien abductions, but operating controlled by the U.S. military and U.S. personnel, big business personnel, dark fleet personnel. Nazis have been seen a lot during all this, members that look like they were in Star Trek, but human beings. And it's attributed to these secret space programs and these breakaway civilizations.
Right.
Mine was the United States Navy. They were U.S. Navy officers. They were wearing their dress blues. They were wearing their parade blues. They were officers, like the dark suits, and with the gold fringe, the stripes on the shoulders, and everything. And they came into my room using some kind of portal technology, and they offered me the choice to volunteer to become a superhero, a hero to the earth. It basically described the importance of us. I was very special. The importance of my future in this program, and how the world needed me. It needed heroes that would fight for them and everything. That would basically be loyal and honorable to them. And so it's very military jargon when they're recruiting a 9-year-old child. And I accepted, and that led to the 20-year and back experience. And that was basically, it's so much to talk about. It's, to say it easily, 20 years lived in a timeline that they can take you back. And that's basically you're a child slave at first, a child soldier at first, shanghaied is a good word for it. Now, regardless if you volunteered or not, you're shanghaied into a system where technology is so advanced, it's like magic to experience. And uh, you're in Solar Warden, you're defending the Earth specifically, and the planets Mars, Earth, and Venus as you approach the sun, which is basically operating like a Stargate. You're not alone. It's the Astra High Command provides most of the leadership and the authority. That's a very celebrated and very well talked about Yeah, actual element of the exopolitics. I'm not the first one to talk about the Ashtar High Command. I won't be the last. This is all there. There are the Greys. They operate as an independent group, either as allies, sometimes as enemies. There's the Reptilians, generally unfavorable, but there are friendly Reptilians. So the chances are, if you're seeing an actual Reptilian, is on good terms. I mean, there's a whole idea behind each race and each group having these characteristics, but all are present. There's a massive diversity of extraterrestrial life present, but in Solar Warden, it's mostly human and it's mostly segregated amongst human crews, cybernetics, cyborgs, prosthetics, etc. That exists. It's very cyberpunk in that sense, but you're dealing with children. You're dealing with children, some as young as 6, with the oldest being maybe in their 30s, until you start getting into the lifers and stuff like that, who actually control, and it's mostly controlled through AI, robotics.
Are you taken off world? Are you taken to bases, deep space platforms? Where did you
I,
go?
would, I wouldn't say deep space. No, you're traveling only at the furthest extent to Mars, Earth, or Venus. Most of the business is done circling and orbiting Mars in between Luna and here. But the moon is actually so far from Earth that you could put every planet in our solar system, every planet that's disclosed in our solar system side by side and fit in between here and the moon. And the moon is still considered in Earth's atmosphere. Currently, by NASA, it is considered in our atmosphere. Now, this is something that was actually discussed while I was in Solar Warden. And something that I always knew and felt crazy about was knowing that officially the scientific opinion is that the moon is in Earth's atmosphere, even though it is as far away as it is, 200,000 miles. And in now conventional NASA science, if you just Google NASA opinion, the moon is in Earth's extended atmosphere. That's 100% what people don't understand. So even if you're on the moon, you're still within Earth's atmosphere.
Hmm.
You're still technically not in deep, deep space.
Right.
And so the Notwaffen, who originated from the earliest space programs in the modern world with the Nazi regimes, the Nazi Reich, actually the Vril Society and the Thule Society, they had nothing to do with Nazis. They were the Vril and the Thule. They were German, but they had more to do with the Prussians and the people who existed in the 1800s than the organization that existed in the 1930s. So these ancient Prussian Teutonic mystic societies actually had engineers that used Vedic blueprints. They deal with deep space. They deal with deep stations, say in Jupiter or Saturn, and exploration involving interstellar travel. I was not a part of that group. And there are different human groups. There are different human groups like the ICC, which is basically the capitalists, the miners, the resource mongers, the traders, the merchants, and they're as vital to the entire existence of any kind of human, because this is all about projection of species. This is all about going off world. It's all about becoming a solar system traveling species. This is actually the nuts and bolts, the actual what humanity will become, and it's unstoppable in the future. When you think of things like an advanced intergalactic civilization or interplanetary civilization, it is a civilization of factions and specialization and tribes that form societies.
Well,
Like
can you maybe help
Doom.
us understand, like, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, or is that over an oversimplification? Like when you're in, go ahead.
Oh no, it's an oversimplification in life. One can only be stoic and understand things by their virtues and vices, and things are in this world, no matter what, are not perfect. And this is a serious business. This is not a matter. This is a matter of survival. This is a matter of empire. This is a matter of uh, projected unified humanity off world that is ultimately controlling all of Earth. By the way, uh, the illusion of freedom, the illusion of chaos that exists on the planet is just the theater that is used to fulfill the daily life of the ground people, basically the left behind, not the left behind, but the reserve, the farm of their personnel and their staff, which they keep us here just to breed those that will go into these special programs who will literally leave the world behind. like in they've already predictably programmed in movies like Elysium. This is basically a junkyard world, a ghetto world left while the breakaway civilization and the elites keep going into further refinement with their technocracies, with their space stations, with their space colonies. Basically, Elon Musk is always talking about cities on Mars. He's absolutely tongue in cheek revealing that the Martian ICC, and that's why he's actually not going personally. He's not capable. He's not actually in that society. He's not in that breakaway society. But anyone with a mind knows that there are actually civilizations currently on Mars of colonists. That Martian cities have been built since the 1970s and everything. That this is actually how the true space program progressed, and it progressed so rapidly. There's no good or evil. Like there is no like the USSR and the USA are not good or evil. They are two superpowers of ideologies. There are two competing diametrically opposed poles of reasoning and logic. They are two financial systems. They are two different, tribes, but it's just yin and yang. It's just the Tao, isn't it? It's just Maya.
Okay,
And
but
that's
these breakaway civilizations, as you say, they are basically using us. We are a junkyard civilization. They're using us as the farm to breed future soldiers. They're denying us beneficial technology, um, energy, and so forth. I mean, to me, that's evil.
then that's your opinion, and I know everyone's entitled to their opinion of good and evil. But in my opinion, it's that they protect, and it's not that we go without. We are like, have you ever seen how they treat Amazonian tribes in
Yes.
nature documents? They don't take them from the jungle because these poor people don't have things. These poor people don't have roads. These poor people don't have cars. These people don't have grocery stores. We need to take them and rescue them. For us not to do that, is that evil? No, we preserve their way of life because in our minds, we are actually imposing and giving them these things as ruining what is sacredly primitive and ancestrally inherited. And that's how the breakaway civilizations, as controlled by extraterrestrial civilizations like that have, the Astro High Command, it's a confederation of many different species. They have a lot of experience in this. They view mankind as not, as the Amazonian tribe, as not needing the intentional interference. It's a lot as, and I always say this, and it's always weird when Ray Bradbury, the creator of Star Trek, or Gene Roddenberry, sorry, Gene Roddenberry, was actually read into the program. He was a member of the Circle of Nine,
Mhm.
and the whole Great Directive was what they've been telling mankind since the days of Saint Germain. There are these societies, even on Earth, of human beings who have free energy, who have the ability to heal any disease, live for hundreds of years. They cannot give this information out. There are there are police in the essence of the word. There are police even to the police of the water. There are archons. There are archons that control whole solar systems, whole galaxy arms of the Milky Way, and they control this. Also, like in Star Trek, like the mighty Q, they are temporal. They say, and you think, well, what can control this great tech? It's beyond matter. It's one of those things where it's like, uh, as wild as you can imagine, there is even more.
Well, you said
Mankind
those in possession of this technology, they cannot share it with us. Why not?
now that is, I do not know. I'm only a man, and I was only a sailor, and that, and in the terms of I was in the air wing of the Solar Warden program. But even then, I may have had psychic abilities, but I'm not that, omniscient, and I'm not even claiming I was. I only know what I've experienced in the orders of things. And in my own philosophies, I've come to the maturity of saying that it is a matter of the cosmos and the matter of the heavens. I only know that it exists. And in that reality, that's enough for me. That at some point, you have to accept, like the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Gita is all about that, like the question of why are we in this battle and everything, and it's just trust the system that is good, that you are in, that it has selected you to be aware of and to do your duty and everything. And it's this whole, like, because I view it as a spiritual thing. I view it as you do, the good and evil, the idea of right and wrong.
Yep.
We want to be on the good side of things. The whole idea, though, is that why am I not judging it? Why am I thinking that they're not keeping it? I know it's just that, like, I'm only aware of it. I'm only aware that this is not being shared. I'm only aware that this is not being shared because the technology is even farther than that. It's not even a matter of med beds. A lot of people say that in breakaway civilizations talk exopolitics.
Right.
We're going to get med beds. We're going to get this stuff. George Van Tassel in the 1950s was given med bed instruction technologies. He was called the cyclotron. He was given to it by the Astro High Command. He was given to it by Pleiadians and Venusians. This happened in the 1950s. Why haven't we built mass produced it? Why isn't Elon Musk making these in his factories? He's making cars. Why? Because men's greed, because men's need for money, because the control of money is avarice. And so do not rush to pass the blame on those that, have this and are keeping us safe. Pass the blame on ourselves for not embracing this, pursuing it. Why do men make guns, but they do not make medicine? Everyone rushes out to buy guns. How many people rush out to better their lives and buy holy books? Why don't men save up hundreds of dollars and buy books to help out their soul, or to pass the needy, or to read to others? Because they want weapons. They live in fear. They live in paranoia. And this is what I said about the Amazon tribe. Why do we not interfere? It's because they're on their own level of civilization. And we can't comprehend how complex we would make their lives because we don't know where they're at evolutionary wise.
All right, Tex, we'll take a time out. We'll come back and continue to speak with the man behind Beyond Top Secret Texan. Stay with us. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Welcome back. Tex is here from Beyond Top Secret Texan, full spectrum broadcaster of the truth, from extraterrestrials to the occult, military conspiracies to true crime. And you can follow him on X at Top Secret Texan. And just click on the links in the episode notes. I've linked up to his podcast at Podpage and his link tree as well. So you don't hold a grudge that you were abducted, or you think, okay, I'm just a cog in the wheel. I've got to kind of go along with this, or how do you view your abductors?
I view it as a great honor, actually. I view it as a great honor because, and this is going to sound weird because it's very much like men don't think this way in modern world. But I view it as a great honor. I'm just going to say it because I'm a warrior. And my entire genetic life and my past lives have been in great empires or great armies or in great resistance fights. And it's just genetically what I was destined to do in this world. In this Dharma, my Dharma is war. I always remember, and for eons, thousands of years, thousands of millennia, since the beginning of the cycles, and that's I study Vedic history and everything. I understand deep time, that men live many lives, but they have destinies. They have destinies, And whether or not they understand them, whether or not they accept them, whether or not they're hard or difficult, whether or not they cost them their very lives, those destinies cannot be defied. And I am a determinist. I am a it comes down to the spirituality behind it and everything. If my destiny was to carry a sword and fight for my lord, then I will do so until my dying breath. That's my duty. And this is the Solar Warden type loyalties talking in. It's why I was picked, I believe, is because I have that sentiment. They're not going to pick someone who's going to resent them. I know people have that resentment. I know people have their own opinions and everything, but to me, this is something that I view as a great honor, and it's something I hope to remember more fully, to record, simply to record it as a great glory. And that's what helps me motivate when I'm trying to pursue my memories of it, when I'm seeing it. As I'm not I don't always like what I see. I always don't like my memories. I don't agree with a lot of the things that we've done, and the effects of it are traumatic. A lot of it was very nightmarish. And that's the thing. It's not Buck Rogers flying around. It's real war. It's real. Your friends are dying. Your people that you work with are dying. The ship you're in is on fire. You're trying to save yourself and put it out. Situations like that are flashing up in my mind. Growing up, getting older, seeing laser beams melt ships that hundreds of thousands of miles away in the darkness, and knowing that at any time it's going to be me. Seeing extraterrestrials, which are so shocking that I still have nightmares just thinking about them, in terms of what what they're capable of and what they're doing, and then going through just that system of never having love from 9 years old, never having parents, never having love, never having anything besides sex, besides I don't want to go too graphic into
Right.
this because I know it's a radio program, but I mean it is human. It is human. And so and it is you're in a navy. You're in a navy. It's men and women, and it's encouraged as well as enforced, and it's way more radical and way more science fiction. It's definitely more, Robert Heinlein. That's the thing. Like, I'm not saying this just because it's a fantasist thing. I can stop that right at the pass. But golden age science fiction, and science fiction from the 1960s and 1970s, and even the 1950s, and even before, Jules Verne and stuff, has all been disclosure from these secret societies. Jules Verne, for example, was a member of, and H.G. Wells was a member of the Fogg Society, War of the Worlds, etc. And then Heinlein carries over into this all the way to Heinlein. Heinlein's ideation, like in Starship Troopers, of a intersex, intergender, mutual, off-world military service that creates citizenship in a caste society, and the sex between them is encouraged as a type of team building, and a type of that they shower together. It's not squeamish. It doesn't have these mores. It's very taboo. It's very liberating. It's very laissez-faire. But it's done that on purpose because it's MK Ultraing you. It's indoctrinating you to have loyalty to your system. You remember, you are just children. It's using your hormones against you. It's using your biological programming to their advantage and stuff. They are making you basically become what there is no parallel on Earth for, outside maybe Olympic athletes, outside maybe it's not something you're going to find on Earth ever. Now, on the 20 and back, when you come back to Earth, when they bring you back, they bring you back and they drop you off again. So you have to live your entire life, and you have no memories of these, but you have the spiritual effect of it. You are much more mature. You are going to go through stages of depression, stages of extreme dysphoria, and it's all an effect of both these extreme amounts of intense life experiences and trauma of the Solar Warden experience, and then having it basically completely physically reversed, but not mentally or spiritually reversed. And so, yes, there is a lot to be mad about. There's a lot to be angry about when it comes to how that affected my childhood in this life. Feeling literally like I was the only person on Earth who had this thing happen to them. And it's
So,
not, it's exactly like how people talk about, like, uh, when I'll say like it's 20 years. Like you may be 10 years old. I may have 10 years old. I had the mind of a 30-year-old. I had the spiritual existence of someone who's 20 years older,
Yeah.
and all of that intensity too. A 30-year-old military veteran, and imagine how isolating that was. Imagine how distant I was from the normal peer, a normal child my age, and
For
and
this
having
all to
grown up.
be, excuse me, Tex, but for this all to be worth it as far as you're concerned, in other words, it's a sacrifice. It had to be made. I was honored to do it. Then you must be fighting to preserve something. What do you like? Who is the enemy here? What is there? Is it an alliance of a particular races of ETs that we're defending against?
Good question. Yes, the entire backdrop of when I was serving was against the Orion Draco Empire. It's a legacy empire. They're not extraterrestrial. They evolved on Earth. They evolved on Earth millions of years before we did. They, in fact, helped engineer us as an intelligent species. They are the reptilians. They are the Orion Draco reptilians, classic reptilians. Um, I believe Alex Collier said it best in his descriptions of the Orion Draco, but that is absolutely real. They live in subterranean bases on the Earth. They live in far removed places. They live under major cities. They also live off world mostly, and the force of the Astro High Command and was basically purging them out of our system until in 2001. While I was involved in this, I was 14 years old during the Solar War experience this year. Uh, Orion Draco invaded our basically the blue sphere system between Mars and Earth. They destroyed Mars, razed every colony, eliminated almost 90% of the population that was in Mars at that time. Mars was sacrificed to buy time for Earth. Defenses, moons basically. The Luna is basically a fortress. It's a fortress bristling with cannons and guns and laser weapons, masers, scalar howitzers, nuclear missiles. It basically of the dark side of the moon is it's completely fortified. And from there, and the ship squadrons that we had, which were very limited compared to the thousands of ships in the Armada. Basically, there were almost 3 million Orion Draco soldiers that appeared in different casts and different capabilities. There was a splinter fleet. It wasn't even a major armada, but this basically reached Earth. It reached Earth. It invaded. They landed in Antarctica. There was a ground campaign to help sweep up, but at the same time, our AI, the forces of Solar Warden, the combined fleets that we had, various breakaway civilization programs, the weaponry that we were using prevailed. It prevailed. It was a monumental point in time because it was a point where the breakaway civilization, the human space programs, successfully defended the Earth from an alien invasion, from this race's invasion.
How was that covered up? If that was taking place and if they landed on mass in the Antarctic, how was that covered up by the
They
media?
faked 9/11. 9/11, 2001. It
was a diversion.
They had the absolute diversion for it, and no one was looking at Antarctica. And this is how they do these things. That's a controversial subject in itself. It's why I study military conspiracies. It's why I study espionage, and that's all to facilitate the distractions and the idea that this world is only run by tyrants, dictators, military men with guns. In reality, it's just everything is theater. All the world's a stage, and we're all merely players, performers and portrayers. And that's absolutely true, even down to the fact that in the 1800s, and say books like Morals and Dogma, you have Charles Pike, leader of the Grand Master of the Freemasons, basically say we're going to have World War One and World War Two and World War Three, and it's going to be because of these people, and we're going to have the stage set to create this other world. And anyone who really studies this knows that all wars are bankers' wars. All wars are rich men's tricks. All politics are within secret societies, handshakes, secret lodges, groups, and it's generational. It's presidents aren't elected; they're selected. This is all how they distract, and they can keep. Say people don't think that they can keep a lie like this going, and yes, they can because no one's looking up. And just like that movie, Look Up, Yes, the entire government and state apparatus is made to keep you in a dark age where you simply can't even look up the data at the time. No one knows that if you looked up and have access to the archived web, UFO videos in 2000 and 2001 and up to 2000, say 5 in Mexico and Latin America and South America and South Africa and Antarctica and Australia, you will find extraordinary mass sightings. Say Guadalajara, Mexico in 2004 had the victorious Ashtar High Command and Solar Warden fleets fly over it as a sign of parade and strength. This was seen as the Guadalajara OVNI fleet. And there were thousands of UFOs seen over the city of Guadalajara by tens of thousands of people. These things, see, that's the thing. Like, just because the Americans and their mass media are controlled, and just because we're on a different wavelength in terms of what we see, we believe, and what we don't, it doesn't exist, doesn't mean that there isn't even evidence. There's evidence. There's hard evidence for all of this, and they have everyone asking the wrong questions and not getting any of the right answers. But that's just that. Like that's the whole thing. But yes, there are other factions as well. Currently, we have insectilians that are forcefully trespassing, forcefully invading, although it is not the entire species, but it is a group of them, a massive group. They're doing that in South America. They're doing that in the Amazon, up into the Amazon interior, bordering Paraguay, Colombia, Bogota, Ecuador, Peru, the Western Amazon, basically the Western Amazonian River. And if you look up the events, there are alien attacks in Peru. There are mass military movements, exercises between governments, Colombia, Venezuela, for example. There are states in Brazil that are basically deporting entire populations of civilians to preserve Amazonian sanctity. They're doing that so they can hide any events of battles, any events of extraterrestrial landings or attacks. And for example, you think, where is this activity? It's all South America. It's all in these proximate locations, and we just don't take the news seriously.
Tex, I got to take pardon the interruption. I got to take another time out. We'll come back and pick up on that point. Tex from Beyond Top Secret Texan. Stay with us. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Tex from Beyond Top Secret Texan is with us. We're talking about secret space programs and breakaway civilizations. So why keep this? Why create this charade here on Earth to keep us preoccupied and divert our attention and to keep us divided so that they can, battle these incursions from various races of extraterrestrials? Why not just fully disclose and say this is what we're up against, and have people, unite against these alien forces? Why the deception?
And many times I think about it, I think they have made disclosure not only made disclosure efforts, but actually made disclosure um, through official channels, but the official channels are not considered such, and that's kind of this great game of confusion. And like I said, I didn't make the system, I didn't make these rules, I didn't make whatever's at play. I don't understand. I'm just trying to make sense of it, right? I'm on the same level as everybody else as to the operations as why, but I can see it. I can see that it is a distraction, and I can see that there is disclosure in public media, in movies, in radio, in books, tons of books, hundreds and hundreds of sci-fi novels that no one will ever read again. They were written 75, 80 years ago that clearly detail extraterrestrial races, battles, breakaway civilizations, like Heinlein Starship Troopers, that whole genres of space military fictions, video games. They are telling you as much as they can, to the point that all of America's pop culture, and like with Independence Day success and things like that, is aware of it. Everyone knows where Area 51 is on a map. Yet this base didn't exist until 2013. It's like this kind of double-edged sword. Now the thing is, Men in Black has the greatest line ever: "A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky animals." Why don't they tell massive amounts of people? It's exactly that. A person is smart, and they'll read a person into a secret space program. A person can qualify for joining these and rank and get the security clearance and dedicate their life to it. They can pick people, yes, all day long. People are chosen. People are abducted in their adulthood. People are read into it when they become scientists and engineers and into these high value programs, skunkworks programs, etc. But yes, they're not going to ever just say, "Hey, everybody, like, Joe Biden, Donald Trump's going to show up." And even then, if you actually believe in modern day reporting, um, Donald Trump did want to tell the world, and that this infected the Galactic Federation of Light, and that there was the Israeli Space Force commander who
Yep.
came out forward and said this in 2017, 2018. So that's the thing. I'm sitting on a mountain of reports just like this, where presidents wanted to disclose information and people wanted to disclose, and military commanders have come forward, and the Canadian the Minister of Defense came forward and said that there were 98 species that were colonizing Earth. And that is where the next question is. They're not only external threats. To disclose this information would have to disclose the truth of the colonization efforts that the secret space program, exopolitical program, there's no name for it, really. It's just the truth. It's the truth of the extraterrestrial question. They're colonizing Earth everywhere, small towns, big cities. They have holographic generating cloak technology. This has been talked about extensively, and everyone knows this, because the thing is, aliens are not inherently evil, and they all have unique personalities like all intelligent beings do. And they're not any different than men. They are scientists who are doing research. There are businessmen who are on business trips. There are, people who are refugees from their own political situation. I say people, but extraterrestrials who are refugees from their own political situation. There are travelers who just are nomadic, and Earth is a good home for them. There's a big enough room for everybody, and they live within their own colonies, like entire towns that were designated and created just for them in the mountains and the deserts, like the tall whites that have been reported that live out in Dream Lake and Groom Lake in their own colony, that are in military property, that are kept and basically provided for. And there are beings that have lived on Earth for hundreds of years. To call them aliens is to call a person who's been in America for several generations, whatever their country, their nationality is.
Right.
And so
But the Dracos want to subjugate us, don't they? The Dracos, they want to subjugate us, do they not?
Well, at this point, see, that's the thing. There is the desire to label every single thing in terms of, like, countries, labels, whatever. Like, it's the same thing as saying, does this person in country X want to do this to us?
I mean, the Empire.
That's what I'm saying. The empire. So are there not good and bad in every system? Are there not traitors, turncoats, I say, like, refugees from those systems that say we didn't want to be a part of that? That was we agree that was wrong. We're vegetarians. We're hippies. We believe in a super soul and are actually even nicer. And just because we're a reptilian or scaly skin, we actually love human beings, and we love animals. Like, we like human beings, like, don't want to eat. They say, do all human beings want to eat cows? Well, you would say human beings cow food. Yes, human beings eat cows. But then you would also say it's complex than that. And no human being in their right mind would just bite into a living cow, causing it pain and suffering. So the idea of a soul, the idea of a consciousness, intelligence, it necessitates individual circumstantial understandings. And this is where you get the Men in Black type universe we live in. You have to apply for it, obviously, the citizenship, and it's run just like in a bureaucracy where that is understandable on an individual person to person level. But understanding things like people, like tribes, like a species, like, yes, reptilians in general are predatory, vampiric, cannibalistic, whatever dark side nature, predatory type, evolutionary thing that you would like to, like, paint them as. But they also have the right to choose, and they have the right. They didn't personally have anything karmically to choose that life or that species. So, are we evil? Are we the genocidal monsters? And that comes down to that 1950s sci-fi ethos, that golden age. Who are the monsters? I say man is just as evil at times, and I say we don't need to look for devils in other species. We can look in the mirror. And I think that's what this whole program is about. This is maybe our planet, this may be our responsibility, but we have to elevate our actions and our consciousness and not view everyone as a threat. We have our militaries. Yes, it's foolish not to have one, but it's a necessary maturation. And just like how these higher powers didn't destroy every single Orion Draco when they defeated them, because at this point they are defeated. At this point um, they're actually even exiled outside. That's the whole thing with exopolitics. At some point, this is about evolution. This is about ascension. This is about mercy. This is about learning how to handle power, how to handle great power. And yes, the question is, are reptilians evil? Yes, but we've defended them. We've rendered them harmless and defenseless. Now, do we deliver the death blow? Do we forever shun them and exile them? Do we wear their hides and celebrate with like macabre dances and cannibalize their flesh for their mana? And no, we accept peace. We make a future together. And I
So,
and I think that's one of those things that, like, it's biblical. It's a spiritual thing. Like, what is the idea? Does there have to be these great apocalypses?
well, that's my next question. Because as you mentioned, 9/11 was a distraction, a diversion, so that we wouldn't notice that there was an ET incursion in the Antarctic. If we have basically sort of vanquished, let's call them the enemy for now, whether it's temporary or not, what does that mean for the possibility of World War III? Many, look around. It seems like we are on the cusp of World War III. Some people say, well, we're already in World War III. It's information war, as McLuhan said. World War III would be an information war. But is it going to be necessary if, I don't know, just project into the future? Where are we heading?
Well, just because one enemy is dealt with currently doesn't mean that the future is set, or we have no more enemies. Poaching, for example, intergalactic poaching, interplanetary, interspecies poaching. Greys are typically involved in this behavior where they poach individuals, so Solar Warden has to actively guard against them. And just like how humans poach elephants or poach rhinos, same thing. They kill human beings, harvest their organs, harvest their resources, and then dump them and then take off on their ship. So it's a whole level of eco war in that sense. We have to preserve our ecosphere. We have extraterrestrials traveling in and out that need to be vetted, whole systems, whole caravans, whole fleets. We establish trade with other intelligent species in our solar system. There's 900 reported intelligent species in our solar system that all benefit from Earth and are these breakaway civilizations through trade, through resources, etc., as well as colonize Earth, as well as being in our responsibility. We have crypto terrestrials, which are Earth-based races, sometimes hostile, sometimes peaceful, coexisting and co-evolving with human beings currently to this very day. We're not the only intelligent species on Earth. We have to coexist and as well, defend ourselves from any possible competition. As well at this point, like say the Mayan Aztecs. There's a Mayan Aztec civilization. They didn't go extinct. The people who built Machu Picchu, the people who built Tenochtitlan, the people who built the Inca, Veracocha society, they went underground. They're a subterranean society now, but they populate in the hundreds of millions, nearly in the billions. They have technology just as advanced as we do. They have the entire ancient system of belief that they had, including the emperorship of the Mayan Empire and stuff. That is as a competitor, that is a hostile empire. Currently, we have insectilians that they're coming in for to take what was left behind from the Orion Draco, the scrap technology, the even the carcasses of their cities and of their hives. They're doing this against our will. They're doing this and it's disrupting balance. And Solar Warden as much defends Earth violently as does keep the balance, keep secrecy, keep the status quo. And it's a piece to keep the Pax Solar Warden, basically. This to keep the show as it's going. As if you say World War III, not only what the idea of World War III, the idea of World War III and all world wars are the distractions. That is the theater. World War One really was a war with with a crypto-terrestrial species. It was a war with a species that was inherent to Earth, native to Earth, but existed in the European and Caucasus Mountains into Russia. The Eurasian mountains basically existed as a subterranean predator species. It's the reason why historically there's so many skeletons in the catacombs of Odessa in the Ukraine or in Paris. There's catacombs throughout Europe filled with skeletons, not because of the Black Death, but because of these cannibalistic underground societies of species. World War One was a combined effort with modern weapons to eradicate them in Europe. World War Two, the development of the Dark Fleet, breakaway civilization tech, and the communication with extraterrestrials and subterranean beings in Agartha, the creation of New Schwabenland. You had to scramble and create a Hollywood production that was so sophisticated and rewrite every history book in the future. But this lie is 100% believed and never even questioned. But the truth is, it's 100% misleading, and it hides the fact of these Antarctic bases by these Third Reich, but real Thule society. They were not. That's the whole thing. They get you thinking about Hitler and Nazis and things. No, that had nothing to do with the real Germans who were forming a breakaway civilization, who were developing the Guy Glocker, the Harnabo, the Andromeda Gerat, these extraterrestrial these off-world capable space planes, these space programs. They were launching rockets into space in the 1930s. And they don't want you to tell you that they didn't invent it themselves. They had extraterrestrial craft that they had recovered in the Hamburg Forest, the Black Forest of Germany. There were battles over Nuremberg with alien craft landing to Earth. They were collected. They had resources that just springboarded them. They were not German scientists in a laboratory. Ach, mein Lieber, I got it. Yes, we can fly to the moon. The Italians had spacecraft they had recovered in the 1860s. The West had them as well, and that whole timeline has to be readjusted. It doesn't Roswell doesn't matter. Roswell was so late in the game. They had UFOs and airships in the 1840s. They had been seeing them since Alexander the Great's day. They knew about the flying shields. The Vimanas are integral and fundamental to the Hindu and Vedic religions, which have millions, literally billions of believers today. And the Catholic Church has secret articles, secret archives, secret Vatican warehouses. They traveled to the West. They were in the New World. They collected so much technology that they knew what to do with, and they are as integral to this whole thing as anyone else. That it's through the shoulders of giants that we were able to attain the heights that we were.
So very quickly, Tex, what about? I mean, what about World War III? Do you see that as inevitable? Is it needed as a distraction? What do you see unfolding in the next, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years?
Well, the thing is, what is World War III? Now, I don't want to answer your question with a question, but what I see happening is a continuation of what's been going on. The theatrical and almost ritual changing of nation states' power and balance because of this semi occult, or it's purely occult fulfillment of prophecy. And you could say that this is because the simulation has a code, the programming code always repeats. You can say it's biblical prophecy. You can say it's the book of Revelations. You could say it's the Battle of Armageddon. You could say that the day it started, that say for example in this case Israel and Palestine, that there was a date with destiny because it was deliberately set up by people who were trying to create the building blocks to create biblical prophecy to undertake this system. Now, for a lot of people, they don't understand what biblical prophecy is. Not separate from extraterrestrials. It's not separate from any of this. This is going to create a situation where it's going to require higher powers, these societies, these space fleets, to interfere directly with what's going on. They are going to present themselves. And these nations on Earth, I will predict, will see these as invaders. They will see, because they're not wed into the secret. The people who are leading armies, the people who are leading militaries, they're as low vibration as they come. They're as enslaved mentally and spiritually as it comes to this idea of like ego, pride, and materialism. And what's gonna happen is that it's gonna be set up in this way intentionally, 100%. Where Solar Warden, Astro High Command, the Pleiadians, the Venusians, whatever you want to call them, they come down. They are the heavenly host. They are this army of heaven. They are the cosmic army. They are going to be seen as alien invaders. All the propaganda is going to go wild on Earth. They're going to eat our brains. Don't get on the ships. They're reptilians in disguise. And all the guns are going to point up to the sky of the evil nations, and they will be immediately disarmed by technology that is so advanced they couldn't even imagine. It's not going to kill them. It's not going to be so violent, and if it does, it's going to be in such a way that's so humane, and it's going to be in a way that it's going to be undeniable as to their power. And then you're going to see a fulfillment of every knee shall bend, everyone will, and it'll be a world peace, a type of bringing down of a celestial power. And I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is Christian propaganda." I'm actually a Muslim. I just converted to Islam and everything, so I understand this is also in the Islamic book of Revelation, right? This is in a lot of books. This is in a lot of people's foreseeing of the end of the world, right? This is exactly what how the Bhagavad Gita starts too. So I could say this in a lot of different pan scholarships too. And the theosophical side, the end of ages, the beginning of new ages, the beginning of a new utopia, beginning of a new Atlantis. Um, all these, the book of Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike. For those who are like, oh, no, that's all monotheism and stuff. Just the Morals and Dogma, Scottish York Freemasonry, Albert Pike. That there would be a world war designed to eliminate all these negative entities, the nihilists, the Zionists, the communists. They'd all fight each other, and then all these bad parties would eliminate each other, and then what would rise as a utopian state of intellectual, spiritually advanced peoples. And the thing is that people have a difference of interpretation. Will these be a few people or will these be everyone? I believe it'll be everyone. I believe no one will be left behind. I believe literally the slave will be freed in the symbolic sense that everyone, once exposed to the truth and light, will be able to live their lives finally. Like actually, they like the life they lived before would be considered a walking death. It'll be a state of this is their full birth. This is finally the world coming to be its potential, be what it is. Where extraterrestrials walk amongst us, we don't need to hide. Everyone is on the level. We are given the powers because we're not going to use them for evil. We're given the technologies because we can better use them. We're finally in this next stage, but it's nothing new. It's nothing new. If you follow the yogic cycles, for example, like the Vedic cycles, the yogic cycles, there is Kali Yuga, which is we're in Kali Yuga, the age of destruction and recycling of the forge, basically of the fire, and what rises from the ashes. the phoenix, the star people basically come down to heaven. The gods walk with men again. Age of Ganesha, peace and prosperity, super fertility. Everyone has abundance. Everyone has, connections with the spiritual, the Akashic. Things are golden, but it can only come from the final cremation of the old, of this, the Mithraic slaying of the bull, the Mithraic slaying of the age of Taurus, and this thing, like, it go into this like Sumerian calendars and things like that. There has to be great destruction before there is great creation. And that's just, and that's the thing, that's true. I didn't make up the ancient mysteries. The ancient mysteries are just here to be what we're studying and guiding, regardless of how you approach it. You can approach it from Christian orthodoxy. You can approach it from Judaic orthodoxy. You can expose it from New Age spiritualism that you're just making up, as you go. But ultimately, you will see the picture that these natural cycles, these seasonal events, are all predestined. And I said before, it's all about, I did not make the destiny, but it's there for everyone to see. No man knows the date. No man knows the date and time. That's true. Like, there's no need to predict it through calendars. I know there are channels right now, creators right now, who do very good work, and they're trying to predict it on calendars. They try to predict dates. They try to predict the gematria. They try to predict everything. But I think, of course, it's inevitability. But at the same time, that's just, it's not even my prediction. It's just the prediction as it stands.
Wow. Tex, we covered a lot of ground. We'll have to do this again. Once more, how do people listen to Beyond Top Secret Texan?
You can catch my podcast through Spotify, iHeartRadio, or any other major podcast platform. Just type in Beyond Top Secret Texan, it'll pull it right up. Or you can check out the podpage.com/Beyond Top Secret Texan website. That's the website I got. It has all the episodes that they're released. Check out the archives. There's over 400 episodes, all of them over an hour long, covering a lot of different subjects. I cover full spectrum, everything, even from the small cases to the big cases, to these massive pictures that I was just presenting there, to very, very local stories. I cover a lot of stuff that has that just covers, spotlights Texas's unique occult history and things of our own alternative past, and things that people are falling into obscurity that people should know, that people shouldn't forget. And I present audiobooks, I present everything like that's obscure, that I think is really important. Different speeches, presentations from occult societies to historical presentations on mythology and everything. I just try to make sense of this extraterrestrial picture, this exopolitical picture, the breakaway civilization, the secret space program, the super soldier, all of that. You can catch me through that, or you can catch me through my social media, which is Twitter. Currently, Twitter is my flagship, and that is going to be at Top Secret Texan. Or you just type in Beyond Top Secret Texan, it'll pull my posts right up. And so, definitely, I welcome you aboard and everything. And check out those archives, because there's hundreds and hundreds of episodes. I probably covered everything that there's to cover. So if you want to hear me talk about something, search it up first, and then give it a listen.
Tex, great to meet you. Great conversation, and we'll do it again.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be on. Thank you very much.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Hey there, welcome to another episode of Strange Planet, and it's not always the land of woo, paranormal UFOs, conspiracies, and the secret machinations of secret cabal. Sometimes I just like to let my hair down and rock and talk rock and roll. And I was so excited recently when, of course, Hackney Diamonds dropped from the Rolling Stones. Whenever a new album comes out from the greatest live performing band in history comes out, it's a rare gift to be treasured, because you never know when it might be the last. And let's face it, we're all living day to day on borrowed time. We're going to talk about the Rolling Stones and a brand new book. It is the photography book of 2023, to be sure, and no serious rock and roll fan should be without this book. It's called The Rolling Stones Icons. It's from ACC Art Books Limited. And it includes, as you can imagine, iconic, rare, unseen images of the Rolling Stones in a career spanning over 60 years. And the book brings together the greatest photographs rather ever taken of the band. And it's a remarkable anthology of the Rolling Stones and their images. You've got some awe-inspiring and surprising photographs, as I say, spanning 6 decades, countless tours and album covers. And you've got photographs from Terry O'Neill. You've got Michael Brennan and his photos of their creative peak back in the 1970s, and onto the stadium tours of the 21st century by Greg Brennan. You've got Michael Ward, photos by Jared Mankiewicz, even founding member of the Rolling Stones, Bill Wyman, Linda McCartney, Michael Joseph, Tony Sanchez, of course, who struck up quite a friendship with Keith Richards, Dennis O'Regan, Douglas Kirkland, and others. And the introduction to this incredible book of photographs is written by rock journalist Harvey Kubernik, who has written some amazing books. Jimi Hendrix, Voodoo Child, 1967, A Complete Rock Music History of the Summer of Love, Turn Up the Radio, the story of the band from Big Pink to The Last Waltz, and many others. Harvey, welcome to Strange Planet. How are you?
Delighted to be here with you.
Let me get your take on Hackney Diamonds.
I have to say, I'm quite aware, being around the band a bit, that especially Mick Jagger doesn't want this group viewed or seen as an oldies act. Even though we go to the shows and we clamor for some of their older copyrights. And they do introduce a couple of new tunes into the set from an album when they tour. And I took a listen to it, and I was quite aware of the studios, or especially one regional studio that they did a lot of recording at, and brought in a new producer, Andrew Watt, who works at a lot of the current groups, I think, like Coldplay and people like that. I think he worked with Elton John earlier. I enjoy this record. Lyrically, I wish it was a bit deeper. I miss some of the songwriting collaborations of Mick and Keith when they wrote songs together, as opposed to maybe songs in the studio or wrote individually and then checked each other's stuff out and how do we look. But I like the grooves on this record. I'm not a fan of Lady Gaga, but when I heard the track with Stevie Wonder, it brought me back into the Exile on Main Street vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
And which was also mixed and overdubbed and mastered on the same Sunset Boulevard Street as the studio they've been using primarily on this new record. I'm glad Keith Richards will be turning 80 next month. And I see people are so preoccupied with this age thing. And I could say, well, U.B. Blake was out there till 100 and things like that. Stop with this age stuff already. We're all on borrowed time, as you say, and I'm just grateful that they're on the planet And I do know one thing. I have a feeling this album will grow on repeated listenings to me. And I like the bass work on this record. I mean, it's not Bill Wyman. I know it's Daryl Jones, but I'm just glad they're with us. And I need a little more time with this recording, but and I'm thrilled Charlie Watts is on a couple of tracks, who I actually knew, was a friend of, and I just like the idea that Bill Wyman showed up on a track, and I know Don was, some things with him as a producer were included. Doing any record is hard, and doing it when you're older is hard, and doing it when money isn't the primary factor to continue sometimes is hard for other people. And the band still kind of exhibited some sense of hunger to me. And I like the track that Keith Richard has on the record. I forgot the title, but it's just like, I like hearing Keith sing.
Yeah, Tell It to Me Straight, I think.
Yeah.
And I think vocally, Mick Jagger he's superhuman. I mean, he sounds like a 20-year-old. He's 80 years old, and vocally, he's all there, perhaps even better than ever.
I was privileged in 1997 to spend off and on 3 weeks with the Rolling Stones in a studio when they were doing Bridges to Babylon. And I was at a couple of Mick Jagger vocal sessions. And I saw him nail a first and second take and then go on to the next track. And everybody would look at each other. And nobody said, oh, God, he's, 50 years old. See, the age thing wasn't even brought up.
Right.
The guy, even in concert with the new technology, he still can hit the notes. Mm. This is not a grizzled country rock veteran. And I would not compare to some of the recent Dylan shows I've seen and heard vocally. I don't know if it's superhuman. I don't know if he's just so in tune to what it takes to deliver. I mean, I do have one theory, and it extends to Mick mostly on stage. I remember watching a basketball game with him at in the lounge at Ocean Way Studios. And we were watching the Chicago Bulls, and Michael Jordan was still on the team. And then I dawned on me, and I remembered that Mick Jagger played basketball in high school. He was not a soccer player. He was a basketball player. And I had the honor and luxury in the early 90s of producing and recording an instructional basketball audio, the legendary basketball coach, John R. Wooden of UCLA, who won 10 NCAA championships in 12 years. And I talked to John Wooden, and I said, I was just in the studio with Mick Jagger or the Stones, and we were watching a basketball game. It was just in the lounge. We weren't really hanging out. And I said, I know Mick Jagger's father, Joe Jagger, was a very active physical fitness teacher in Great Britain. He even had a television show that Mick was on at about age 8. And I said, Coach, because I have a real good memory, I think the Olympics were in Britain in 1948, or probably 52 or 56, maybe 52. And I know you were involved with it in some capacity because you started coaching in the late 40s. And he said, oh, I know that. And I said, did you ever meet Joe Jagger? And he said, I think so. That's the fellow that kind of introduced the sport of basketball in that country. And so the next time I saw Mick Jagger, I said, I want you to know, I just talked to John Wooden, Coach John Wooden, who had some sort of acquaintance with your father when basketball was first introduced. And I know you played basketball as opposed to like Rod Stewart and a lot of the English guys I meet that are soccer guys. Mm-hmm. What's your team? Arsenal, And he said, yeah. And I said, listen, I want to, next time I come by the studio, I want to bring you the double CD of by instructional audio with Coach John Wooden. Oh, that would be lovely. And then Keith watched the action and he smiled and he said, your name's on the guest list permanently.
Wow.
And
That's an honor.
so if you understand Mick as physical fitness guy, as basketball player, stamina, and even there was a joke in the studio about how come that guy's waistline keeps getting thinner. And then somebody said, don't you know that when Mick was going out with girls, in the very early 60s or late 50s or whatever, his father would say, young man, 10 laps around the block. And now you understand the live shows. But I think maybe it translates a bit to the unlocking of the physicality of the vocal cords. It does, if you feel good, you talk good. If you feel weird, you can't project as well. So I think maybe that has a little bit of spice to do with your question. I'm sorry I'm rambling off topic,
okay.
but I'm trying to bring some new action to the deal,
For sure. That's very insightful.
By the way, you've never heard this rap before, have you?
I have not. I had no idea that Mick Jagger was a basketball player. I knew he was physical fitness.
But even on stage, it's not a soccer guy kicking balls like Rod Stewart.
Right.
It's a prancing animal at times. And it's basketball. It's dance moves. It's on the beat. It's off the beat. It's working with the band members like they're on the court with him. And when I say this to people, half a dozen people, I've brought this up in the last couple of years. When I lay this rap out, they pick up the check next time we have dinner.
All right,
because it's really never been out there in the books, has it?
No, you're right. You're right. This is all new information for me and my.
Okay, so I answered the question. My theory, at least.
Well, I think you're spot on. Rolling Stones icons. Let's go back to Terry O'Neill. Is it fair to say that he, along with the Stones, really kind of introduced this whole idea of pop photography to the newspapers?
Very close. There were always photographers, mostly at the daily newspapers in England, going back to blues and the jazz days. They were Fleet Street photographers, usually always shooting in black and white. And when Andrew Loog Oldham discovered, produced, and managed and guided the Rolling Stones, wonderful character, he seized, and he came out of the jazz clubs too, working at places like Ronnie Scott's. He knew that newspapers, before magazines, could bring his band forward visually in this new phenomena, because it wasn't easy for a rhythm and blues or blues-based group, and this goes to the Beatles too, to be introduced on Great Britain in 61, 62, actually 63 or 62. And he was the guy that met Terry O'Neill and arranged for the early photo sessions. And as Terry O'Neill told me in the introduction for this book that I wrote, Terry O'Neill said, can you believe, like, even in 1964, things were so different that Andrew Loog Oldham would bring Marianne Faithfull over to the office of the Daily Sketch for a photo shoot. I mean, if you see how new it was, or nascent, if that's the term, the rock and roll photography was, because in some ways these people, the Beatles, the Stones, especially the Stones visually, clothes-wise, hair length, the Beatles were in costume or in uniform. They were a bit more digestible. The Stones' wardrobe was a little bit different. So in the telegenic aspect, it projected, I think Daniel Weissman, a novelist, says in the intro, you don't define us, we define you. The Rolling Stones, the way they looked, and they weren't packaged as like a team wearing the same clothes. So pretty soon, color magazine showed up, or the photographers started taking pictures in color of the band. And I'm talking 63 and 64. But by 65, there's all kinds of color photos. And Andrew had the ability to bring people like Jared Mankiewicz into RCA studios in Hollywood to take pictures of the Stones recording. And, he knew all the photographers as a publicist starting in 1962. He had worked on a Chris Montez tour with Sam Cooke. So he knew the value of publicity and photos and imagery.
Right, right. Looking at those early Stones pictures from Terry O'Neill, the black and white, I think I'm not sure if it's Bill Wyman in an interview that's mentioned in your introduction, where he talks about how we were a black and white band. I mean, there was no color TV in Great Britain until 1968. We recorded in mono. And so it kind of, it kind of went hand in hand to have this band recording in mono, appearing in sort of, black and white photography. And when you look at those photos, they're looking right into the lens. As you say, they're not posing. They've got cigarettes. They're almost kind of snarling. Daniel Wiseman was right. You don't define us, we define you. They had you don't learn that, or did they? Did someone coach them, or is that who they were?
Part of it is who they were, but Andrew Loog Oldham coached them, guided them. He knew about media. He had worked for Mary Quant. He had worked on a Sam Cooke tour, as I had mentioned. He had seen Eddie Cochran live. He knew, and he also, by the way, this is probably the most important thing. In 1963, he did a 6-month stint working for Brian Epstein. He was a publicist for Brian Epstein. He set up the first interviews with the Beatles when they were promoting Please Please Me. He got them into Beat Instrumental, a magazine over there. And he knew for every action, there had to be an opposite and equal reaction. And the Beatles opened the door, but you couldn't replicate the Beatles. You almost had to be the opposite of them. And if you see the early Stones photos before Andrew met them, or when he was just working with them, they're all kind of wearing the same clothes a little bit. It may not be shirt and tie Beatles costumes or uniforms, but they quickly got out of that wardrobe, and he gave them, he was the compass. I might be a little too heavy in the praise, but it took somebody like him. If you're going to play blues, guys, and you're going to have a harmonica on stage, and you're going to have 6 members on stage, including Ian Stewart early on, their later road manager, piano player, and you're playing this primitive music. It's primitive. I'm only putting it in the context of the times. You really have got to look different, and really not be so cutesy. And you can be accessible, but be yourselves, project stuff. Don't airbrush the cigarette out of a photo that we even see now on reissues and box sets and stuff like that. And your hair is a little bit longer, and your wardrobe is a little bit more daring than what the Beatles were dressing. And I wouldn't put them as competition, but Andrew had the ability and the history of seeing how the Beatles were initially packaged and presented. But because he was co-managing them and producing their recordings, Brian Epstein didn't produce the Beatles recordings.
Right.
Andrew was fully invested in the entire operation.
Interesting.
Makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're right. The suit and tie gave way to the leather jacket and the what do they call it in England? Jumpers, or we call them turtlenecks.
And let's be realistic. Brian Jones was one dandy. That was Mr. Ward. That guy's clothing, turtlenecks, check pants. The guy looked, I don't think a guy's ever looked so good wearing a shirt and tie as Brian Jones.
True.
I believed him in a shirt and tie. I often wondered about making Keith in a shirt and tie. It was part of the process, but Brian had the clothing thing together.
When you're recovering the Rolling Stones, do you have a sort of a favorite? You mentioned, the Bridges to Babylon recording session in '97. Is there another period in which you were covering the band? You were, I think you right in the introduction, you were helping Charlie Watts, kind of hump some gear. You were a roadie for a little while with Charlie.
Well, getting back to an earlier question, when I interviewed Bill Wyman in 2002, I asked him about why the band was so successful, especially in photos. Did I know 20 years later I'd be writing an introduction for a book on the Rolling Stones? And he, when you ask a musician or any artist or anybody in pop culture a question that's different than the same ones that are always asked, you're going to get a really good response. And that's why I was very pleased that you picked up on what Bill said about how we sat close together and we were a black and white band and we were a mono band.
Mm.
They were squished together. They were presented in front of you on a plate. They weren't spread out on stage like jazz groups or Count Basie. The focus was central. Getting back to in 2016, my dear friend Jim Keltner, who I've known for over 50 years, called me and he said, I'm with Charlie Watts, and Charlie thought it would be okay for you to come to a rehearsal as the Stones were preparing for their Desert Trip show. And I had struck up a friendship with Charlie, I don't know, late 80s. I met him, and for some reason, because I wrote for Melody Maker, again, that's sort of like the Toronto Sun to you or something like that. I was like the American in LA, and I had a small grasp of jazz, enough to fake it. And when I said the magical words to him, he said, "Do you like jazz?" I said, "Yeah, my brother's the jazz guy in the family, but I just met Chico Hamilton, the drummer." And he said, "Could you get his autograph for me?" I said, "Well, yeah, I know Buddy Collette, who grew up with him, and he said, "Have you ever seen a young photo of me?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I know you play Gretsch drums, and a lot of people do." And he said, "Well, I don't really print it, but early on in my life, people called me Young Chico."
Hmm.
And so I got him the autograph and I mailed it to him. And then I said, "Well, by the way, I'm probably going to see some drummers, and then in the future." And then one day I was going to the post office and I looked at an older man. And somehow I said to myself, "Are you Stan Levy?" And he said, "Yes." "And who are you?" And I said, "I'm a music journalist. I live in the neighborhood. And you need to know that Charlie Watts is a huge fan of yours. And in 1960 saw you play with Stan Kenton at Wembley Stadium." And he said, "Oh, yeah, I did that thing. And I worked with Peggy Lee." And I said, "Yeah, and you're also the drummer on Gene Pitney's Town Without Pity." So I'm the guy that knows all the data that's not on Wikipedia. And he said, "If this drummer and his band ever come to town, I'd like to meet this Charlie guy." He was a photographer now. He had stopped playing music. He was a photographer. And Charlie Watts did not have email or anything. So I sent him a postcard. I said, "Charlie, I've just connected with Stan Levy. He'd like to meet you." And I don't know how he did it, but like he found a phone to call me immediately.
Hmm.
"We're going on tour. We'll be staying at blah, blah, blah. I'd love to be introduced to Stan Levy." So I set up a lunch at Stan Levy's house that Keltner and I arrived. And I said, "I can't wait to see what Charlie's wearing."
Hmm.
I expected some dapper character. And he gets they were staying at the Four Seasons, and a cab pulls up and he gets out with like a shirt and a pair of blue jeans.
Hmm.
But he was just going to meet one of the people that I know is influential in him being a drummer. And we spent about 3 or 4 hours together hearing all the war stories. Then we were all invited to the Stones that night, backstage, the whole hang. But I let Charlie and Stan hang together. I didn't have to bogart in. I did my mitzvah. And Keltner said, he said, you don't understand. I saw Stan Levy when I was a kid too. I never really talked jazz with you. It's always Bob Dylan. And I said, you're a fan of Stan Levy too? He said, are you kidding? He said, you don't understand. Stan Levy is one of the reasons I'm a drummer. So, and something connected. And so when I went to that rehearsal, it was just the band, and Waddy Wachtel walked in there. I know that. And then Charlie was trying different types of cymbals out for this gig, and he had a very small kit. And there was no really roadies or anybody around. And he said, hey, could you help me, put the tambourine on the side? Could you help screw in this one Zildjian cymbal or something like that? And I found myself kind of watching the band in front of me. And I have this tambourine in my hand. For about 8 seconds, I hit it. And Keith Richard pointed at me, and he mouthed something. And then I humped gear for about 10 seconds. And I just kind of watched them go through a set list. And Ronnie Wood, who I've known for decades, runs over. He said, yeah. So you're thinking with the lads now, huh? I said, well, I'm here as a spectator. And he said, what do you think, man? This is it. I said, Ronnie, this is really cool, but let's be realistic. You're the bass player on Jeff Beck's Truth album. And he just said, you've got to be kidding. Hold on. He brings over his wife and his 2 new babies. And then Keith Richard is pointing at laughing. And he comes over with Ronnie, and they both hand me their guitar picks.
Wow.
And it was just a really good vibe. And I wasn't being a real schnorrer. I only stayed for about 2 hours out of the 6 I could have.
Mhm.
I didn't really want to. It was just, to me, it was just a very rewarding experience. I don't think I've ever really written about it, but it kind of became full cycle because I'm in North Hollywood with the Rolling Stones, watching how they rehearse. I wasn't going to be calling out tunes for the set list or anything, but it dawned on me, Charlie Watts played a very small kit.
Mhm.
And I will say, I called up a friend of mine, David Kessel, afterwards, the son of Barney Kessel, the legendary guitar player, jazz icon. And I said, I'm trying to figure out the secret of the Rolling Stones, why it still works. And he said, well, I have a theory. I said, well, what's your theory? I said, I know the tunes have to be good. I know they're dynamic on stage. I know that Bill Wyman told me the secret of the Stones is if him and Charlie have it together, it works. And then David said something to me that really resonated. He said, don't you realize your 3 favorite groups, Cream, Jimi Hendrix, and the Rolling Stones, all have jazz drummers?
Interesting. Yeah.
Have you ever read that?
No, I mean, I knew.
No. And this is the son of Barney Kessel, who I've gone to Stones shows with.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me, you have jazz drummers.
And your baby.
And in the case of Cream and Jimi Hendrix, it's a trio.
Yeah.
And Sting with the Police came out of a jazz group, as a bass player, whatever. But I realized he's not a rock and roll drummer, Charlie Watts. It's a jazz guy with a small kit.
Mm.
And it completely colorized how I heard even the early recordings. I worship the album Aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first album where they wrote all the songs, no covers. And I've said this many times, and I don't think people realize, except the hardcore Stones fans. And this is due to Andrew Loog Oldham again. Bill Wyman has verified this to me, or shall I say reinforced it. The Stones recordings from 1964 to 1967 with Andrew Loog Oldham were all done in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard at RCA Studios. There were a couple of things earlier at Regent Sound in England. And then later on, things like Beggar's Banquet were like mixed and doing some recording in Sunset Sound at another studio, Sunset Sound. Exxon Main Street, everybody thinks, oh, it was done in France. It was mixed, overdubbed, and mastered at Sunset Sound. The Stones' connection with Hollywood, and especially those recordings from the second album through Flowers, or second album through Aftermath, or I'm sorry, through Between the Buttons, maybe. They're done in Hollywood. Some of the tracks are done in Barnes, London at Olympic, but 90% of it is constructed, mixed, mastered, done in Hollywood. There's a bioregional aspect to these recordings that grip people like me that are children of Hollywood, but it extends globally. And I don't think that's ever really addressed or discussed very much.
That is interesting. Especially, I'm blown away by that revelation of those bands, trio all jazz drummers. Harvey, we'll take a.
Does that just blow your mind?
It does, and it makes perfect sense now.
And I had I'll say the ability, and so I was looking at that rehearsal, and believe me, I've seen the band 60 times, but until I saw it up close with a drummer who wasn't overplaying and wasn't doing show-off stuff and could bash, but he could be very mathematical and tactical. But until David Kessel, again, who's a musician himself, and by the way, he was a member for 25 years of the local musician 47 Hollywood, later known as the Wrecking Crew, playing on John Lennon records and Leonard Cohen records. He was a later day second generation guy from like 1973 to 2000. Until he said, don't you understand? Your three favorite groups all have jazz drummers. It completely, I don't know, it was like discovering, it was like the girl you like calls you twice on the phone to go out on a date. It reconfirms something. It's like my instincts were right and she proved it, and David reconfirmed it.
Harvey, going to take a time out, come back and continue to discuss the Rolling Stones. Rock journalist Harvey Kubernik stays with us.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there.
Harvey Kubernik is with us. He wrote the introduction to a fabulous new book. I love this term, lensing the stones. Lensing the stones, which is what this is all about. It's over 300 photos of the Rolling Stones from the early days through the stadium tours, intimate photos of them taken inside the studio with just available light. The Rolling Stones icons, a hardcover from ACC Art Books. And again, Harvey Kubernik writes the introduction. They picked the right fellow. I mean, you have such amazing insights and stories, and doing the hang with the Stones as well. You have some. I talked about that
that period when they were, shooting the Stones, at RCA Record Studio in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard, as you mentioned. Was that Jared Mankiewicz, I think, was
Oh yeah.
one of
Well, there were
those?
two photographers that Andrew invited in. Jared Mankiewicz was on tour with them, who was an Andrew discovery early, whose father was a noted film guy, a writer, Wolf Rankowitz in London. And through Lou Adler, Andrew met the photographer Guy Webster, and he invited Guy to the RCA sessions. And it's Guy's photos that are the gorgeous color photos that are inside the High Tide and Green Grass album that you've salivated with over the years.
Mm.
But Bill Wyman was also taking photos, as we find out. The one thing that I'm really proud about this book, and this has little to do with me, this is the people that put it together at ACC Books. Often we see a picture of the Rolling Stones in a magazine, and we see the photo credit or the agency that licensed it. But you never really get the comments from the photographer about the event or the session. And in this book, and it's what attracted me even more when I was asked to write the introduction, you actually have the photographers in a full page of text commenting on their time with the band. And I'm sorry to disappoint some people, but this isn't a book about sex, chicks, drugs, ODs, police arrests. We're not doing that this time, kids. This is a serious study, and it's the viewpoint of the photographers. I'm not even going to call them shutterbugs. It's the people. There was portraits being done, and there's also the live action by many people who were there then at the beginning and over the subsequent decades. And I just think it's such a wonderful item for people to own. I thoroughly endorse it, but I think we get a different view of the band when a couple of dozen photographers give you their reflections on their time with the group, which has little to do with me. I'm the guy who weaves it together and points you in the direction in the introduction. But, I was lucky to have interviewed Keith Richard in 1977 and Bill Wyman in 2002. That I had some, and these aren't, these are my own interviews. It's not the usual where it's quoted in New Musical Express. Sorry, it's my interviews. And I was fortunate to ask Bill about why the band was successful and a little bit about the photography then, or Keith Richard and I actually discussed the repertoire of the group. I don't think we ever hear about the live repertoire of the band, like how the set list is constructed. And Keith said, and it's in the introduction, he said, when you do a song and it's coming together, sometimes you say to yourself, this has to be playable on stage.
If the fans like it, I may have to play it live. Yeah.
And sometimes, if it's received airplay or if it's the single, that's a given. But with the Stones, you often get some deep catalog stuff that works. And so I learn a lot every time I see that group.
I know they've talked, they're excited. They seem to be genuinely excited about playing Sweet Sounds of Heaven out live. I can't wait to see that live. I mean,
I have a theory, and maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if this next summer the Rolling Stones have some sort of residency in Las Vegas at the Sphere. I mean, this U2 booking or engagement seems to be awfully successful. And I know the Keith Richard never wanted the band to really play Las Vegas, but that dynamic has changed greatly. And they've played the MGM Grand a few times and played in Las Vegas. But I think as a touring unit, and I don't know if age factors in here, and I've watched Elvis Presley. I saw him a bunch of times.
Wow.
Maybe when you're stationary for a month at 5 shows a week or whatever it is, you're not subject to all the schlepping on the road and the weather conditions. And there were times, even owing to COVID, or even going back a couple tours, where Mick would lose his voice, or got sick and had to reschedule a couple of gigs. That's going to happen to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see a controlled environment of a residency with a very stiff ticket price possibly happen. Or I have no knowledge of any of this. They may end up playing 4 strategically placed gigs globally with some pay-per-view or television aspect to it, HBO kind of stuff, and not do the 20 or 30 city kind of global or US tour. But when I see a Daryl Jones around town or something, those people like playing live. And I will admit, sometimes these songs on recordings, including the last 10 years, they work a little better on stage when I've seen them do in the last couple of tours. Maybe it's just the live setting, or and they know how to do the stadium thing really well. And I've seen them in smaller venues like the Wiltern Theater in LA. I'm at a point where I go, I'm just glad they're still with us. Keith Richard has the same birthday as Frank Zappa, and I kind of celebrate them together. I have the same birthday as Johnny Cash. That's a big deal for me. I'm all in on this stuff, and I think a lot of your listeners are in the same game with me, including yourself.
Absolutely. I last saw them during a Bigger Bang tour. I think it was 2006. And to me, they just sound, I remember seeing them on Saturday Night Live, I think in 1978. And they were a little sloppy, and I don't think they've ever sounded better live than they do now.
And I actually asked Keith about that in 1997. And I said, and let's face it, the early shows in the 60s were 45-minute sets. Then in the 72 tour, which I saw 5 concerts, they were 1 hour and 15 minutes. These are 2 hour and 20-minute shows now. And I asked Keith in this interview I conducted with him at a show in San Diego. I know the technology has gotten better. And I really know in the 69 tour, they had much better amps and a bigger technical crew, which is why we have that astonishing Get Your Yeah-Yeahs, live album and the stuff in Gimme Shelter on screen. And Keith said the sound mixing cats really have it together with us now. And that's why your comment about hearing them live, the sound mix. How does a sound mix hit 40 to 60,000 people like that? Now, I know there's big screens, and we sometimes watch the screen instead of the tiny objects and the ants on stage. But the mix sounds really good. They have it together. They have a great tech crew that it's been with them for many years. And we are the beneficiaries of that. So
true. So true. I can't wait to see them play. Maybe one last time. Who knows? Hopefully,
I know it's turned into kind of a merchandise thing with pop-up stores and that logo. I'm surprised there's no logo on our screen of the ton. But if it draws you to the music, and I will say maybe the earlier work that a lot of people still need to discover, whether it be Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, December's Children, as well as some of their recent albums that they are in full ownership of. All that counts is what's on stage or what's in the audio product you buy. And you have a choice. You could veer away from it, flee from it, or embrace it.
Rolling Stones icons. Arguably the most photographed band of all time, would you say?
Yes, but that also, I had an interesting, I will say, The Beatles were well orchestrated in the photo department, press conferences, and Brian Epstein and his crew of publicists knew to have photographers happening. But that's a short 7-year kind of period, kind of, I don't know, 62 to 70, shall we say, in that range. Andrew Loog Oldham knew photographers were welcome. That's basically, he knew they were telegenic and photos could spread the word, especially in color magazines and stuff like that. We didn't have MTV and any of that stuff. The other thing is, and I think, I don't think I said it in the introduction of this book, but it's really implied consent. Back then, the photographers had kind of free access. They could pose the group, take them outside. I mean, today, the bands have hired staff photographers, or any freelancers get to shoot 1 or 3 songs and then they're banished to go sit down. So you kind of have very controlled imagery by the bands and management. I think the Rolling Stones didn't have that in last century. And so maybe that answers your question, why we have such varied photos of the group.
There is some great photos, as you mentioned, from Bill Wyman. Some really nice candid photos. I'm just remembering when the Stones announced the release of Hackney Diamonds, and they were in Hackney in London, and they were being interviewed by Jimmy Fallon, and he asked them about the sort of the origin story of the song "Sweet Sound of Heaven," which has this gospel vibe, obviously, to it. And Keith was joking, something about, you've never set foot inside a church. And I'm looking at a photograph here Bill Wyman took of Mick Jagger, and he's reading a Bible. The photo.
And let's all remember, Keith is a former choir boy.
Yes, true.
And also in 1972, Charlie and Mick Jagger went to the AME Church in Los Angeles, attending a live Aretha Franklin recording session that came out on a documentary a couple of years ago. So there is a churchy aspect, and we must also factor in the late Billy Preston, who came out of the whole church gospel world.
Yes.
And you hear a lot of that, I think, on the Exile on Main Street album. That album, just when I think I'm sick of it, I play it again and I kind of fall in love with it again. I don't know. And it's not just tumbling dice. There's some really absorbing audio portraits on that recording.
Love in Vain, that's from Exile on Main Street?
No, that's earlier. But there's just things like Let It Loose or Stop Breaking Down. I mean, that record, but you also hear, like, if you go back to Beggar's Banquet, there's that wonderful Salt of the Earth recording, which actually had some of that recording, the choir especially, was done in Los Angeles with members of this so-called Watts choir group, including Ginger Blake, who actually is a member of the Honeys that sang in a lot of the Beach Boy Brian Wilson records. And so even the Salt to the Earth with the choir and background vocals were done in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard. I mean, I was born off Sunset Boulevard. I might be biased, okay? But when I bring this stuff up to people, they're actually gobsmacked because it's not on Wikipedia, kids. And when I talk to esteemed and veteran guys like you, I know these are aspects that haven't really been too much considered over your 50 years of being devoted to this group.
No, and this is such a treat for me because I've appreciated this band musically since, I guess my entree, I'm a little bit younger, so Some Girls, 1978, probably, and then later rediscovered the back catalog. But so 45 years growing up with the Rolling Stones, appreciating them musically, but not knowing sort of the antecedents and all of this history and the insights that you're bringing forward to me now. This is a real treat.
I also, I don't know if it's a theory, but I think a large part of the Stones documentation are writers and authors that are from England or New York. And so they have a built-in bias against Los Angeles and Hollywood. How often have we heard that chant at sports stadiums, beat LA?
Hmm.
But, or they make the Stones heritage exclusively linked to chess records.
Right, right.
But I can tell you, Kent Records in Los Angeles, BB King on Modern Records, Lieber and Stoller's Down Home Girl. They had a lot of roots to Los Angeles music or Los Angeles record labels. That's why BB King is on a record with him, or Billy Preston coming out of the neighborhood, or the music of Johnny Otis. They certainly they owe a lot to Stax Records, Memphis, or Chess Records, Chicago. But I have to tell you, the music. I mean, when they would come to town, people like Jack Nietzsche, their arranger producer, who's on 8 albums as a keyboard player, he would take them to see Etta James at the California Club. They would go to the Whiskey A Go Go and see Little Richard. In fact, in 1969, and it's on YouTube, and it's out through a DVD that was put out through Sofa Productions. When they taped the Ed Sullivan Show in '69, they did Gimme Shelter and I think Love in Vain. They invited Little Richard to the audience to see them tape. So they have an affinity to the R&B music of Los Angeles, or the seminal record labels that issued a lot of these recordings. I don't think it comes up too much in documentation, but Harvey Kubernik is on the beat. And
Thank God for that.
I'm here as the town crier, I guess. But, as Keith said, if you're going to go cover a song, do it differently. So if I'm going to get involved with the Rolling Stones, at least as an author or whatever, you got to bring something new to the table.
A different lens. All right, one final time out. Back with more Harvey Kubernik, Rolling Stone Icons.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there.
We're back with Harvey Kubernik for a few moments yet, rock journalist, and he wrote the introduction to this fabulous, well, it's an incredible anthology of photographs of the Rolling Stones from the very early years in the early 60s through their first North American tours into the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. And of course, the Rolling Stones keep on going. So maybe they'll have to be Rolling Stones icons too. I don't know. We'll see. I know this is an impossible task, but I mean, do you have a favorite sort of era with the Rolling Stones in terms of, focusing on the photographs in the book? Is it the Terry O'Neill years? Is it Sanchez? Is it the candid photographs of Bill Wyman?
It might be in that wheelhouse of 65 to 69. Part of it was the band was transitioning, if that's the word. They were going from 4-track to 8-track recording. I mean, in mid 1968, the Beatles got involved with 8-track halfway through the White Album. Something happens when you have an enlarged audio canvas or more tracks to play with. Now, I think it gets a little ridiculous with 24 tracks and 48 tracks and all that other stuff. But sonically, the records, when they were going from 4-track, which were still fantastic, to 8-track, I've been listening to some of them like Aftermath and Between the Buttons on headphones, and they really worked. You really hear little elements and piano work and things like that. And I think that Beggar's Banquet and Going Into Let It Bleed is just kind of my favorite wheelhouse. But then if I ever say that, then I may play something like from Rolling Stones Now, and it's a little bit more raw and primitive due to the technology a little bit. But those are the periods I like. And photo-wise, if we're talking imagery, I thought Keith's hair looked really good in 1969. You know, and I thought the clothing really started rocking in 65, 66, 67, 68. And wardrobe and clothing does play a part in the visual universe. But it always does come down to the music and the recordings. And they got better as a live band with longer sets as the late 60s happened. And then I have to say, and maybe I'm still recovering from the 5 concerts in 1972 on the Exile Main Street tour. It was dramatic, and I don't know. I had a choice. Did I want to be a musician, or did I want to be a DJ? The concept of being a writer was never encouraged by anybody, and I was constantly getting comments like, "You're not considering ever being a writer," or "You're not really thinking of ever writing a book." And I was sort of talked out of it a bit because there was no encouragement. And I just, but I now that I'm looking back a bit on my life, because after 20 books and next year is my 50th year in this trip, and I'm being asked, why is it working? And a friend of mine, Bob Sherman, who I went to 2 1969 Rolling Stone shows, I can't say he reminded me, but he pointed out, we worked for 18 months together at the West LA College Library. I really was a library science major my first 2 years in college. I made sure that Downbeat magazine, Rolling Stone magazine, Ebony Jet magazine, and even like the Toronto Sun, when I think about it, were in the college library. I was really stocking the shelves because the school first opened in 1969. In your ground floor, you can make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened, well, there wasn't really that much encouragement. I mean, I got rejected from the San Diego State Daily Aztec newspaper. Oh, I guess I can't write this year. I was a library science guy. I was a collector. This is long before the internet, believe me. So I became a reader, a collector, a archivist. And those are the things that are embedded in my work, but it fueled the whole thing. It's not your traditional, I've got a degree in English or journalism, or I was at a radio station. It's a rock and roll kid that just kept investing in the journey. And I feel I'm investing for a lot of people. And I'm this self-created warrior, and it's. I mean, I'm not surprised. I've put in the 20,000 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the first book deal happened at age 51. Everybody else threw in the towel by 50. I said, I like new wave music. I like punk rock. I know Elvis Costello. I saw the Sex Pistols. I dig the Talking Heads. I believe the music from 56 to 1976 means something. And I'm going to interview Johnny Cash, and I'm going to interview the Isley Brothers, and I'm going to interview every Motown act and everybody on Stax. And this is not dinosaur music. And lo and behold, the internet showed up and the reissue world came out and box sets came out and streaming came out. And all of a sudden, I'm the cat holding the bag with all the goodies. So if you want to check it out, they're there. And that's why there's books on the Doors or the Beatles or the band or even the Summer of Love 1967 or the Hendrix book. I did a couple of them with my brother, Kenneth. They're different than what's available. And that's why I'm staying in this racket.
Well, thank God for that. Otherworldcottageindustries.com, otherworldcottageindustries.com, the website, and you can check out the whole library of Harvey's books. Amazing work. Wow, what a delight speaking with you, Harvey. I hope we can do this again sometime.
I'm available coast to coast AM, your own Strange Planet deal. I'm a big fan of your show and how you really let the guests talk and provide forum and platform. And let's do it again. And I really appreciate the opportunity today.
The Rolling Stones, Icons, now available. ACC Art Books Limited. Pick up a copy. It's something you're going to pass on generation to generation. As your kids, discover your milk cartons filled with albums in the garage, saying, "Hey, what are these, Dad? Check it out." Harvey, thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there.